this may seem obvious, but it's not. The most important thing you need to do if you want to build relationships on Twitter is to follow people. And you can find businesses and public sector organizations that have Twitter accounts and they don't follow anybody, or they follow so few people that you can tell that they're not looking at their Twitter feed. They're just using it to push out information or to give people another outlet to reach out to them. What you need to be doing if you want to be building relationships is you need to be following others on Twitter. It could be other businesses, but it should also be a fair number of everyday, average people, Twitter users, especially people who fit into some kind of demographic that you're trying to reach, because you want to be, you want to kind of get to know them as a person. And if you, even if you don't react or reshare their stuff very often, if they get in touch with you, it might help to know whether they're just the person that complains about everything, or whether they're the person who is usually pretty reasonable or constructive, and this is a time when they really are frustrated, or you can understand maybe some other context of what they said because of what else is going on in their life. Following definitely helps you to understand people, but then it also is an opportunity for you to, it's a source of content. So you might share stuff that people are sharing on Twitter that you think your audience might like, because they may not, most people who follow you probably are not following that other person, and so the content to them is new, or they didn't see it when that other account posted it. So it's another opportunity for people to see the content. But you have to, but you should also be taking opportunities to maybe reply to people. And it might have nothing to do with what your business is, but maybe they say that they are listening to some music band or something that you like, and it's, depending upon your account, it should be okay to say, oh yeah, I really, when I'm getting in a rut, I find, listening to active music really helps pick me up or something. You can find, basically it's the same kind of thing. You want to find ways that you connect with somebody as a person, because your relationship with them is as a person, and not, if you kind of get past thinking of them as a potential client or potential customer or something, you really have to be putting the emphasis on relationship building.
James, you mentioned demographic. Do we know what Twitter users are? Do we know what they're like? Do we know their age? Do we know is there a typical Twitter user?
It's been a while since I've seen a stat on that. It used to be more about 35 to 50, educated and engaged. Over the last year, a lot of teens have taken to Twitter, primarily because their parents are now on Facebook and their parents aren't on.
I can't see them there.
Yeah, even though it's even more public than Facebook. But yeah, so it's one of these things where I think it's big enough now that if you have a demographic, you'll find it there. Yes?
How do you deal with the hierarchy of scale? Like you hear these people, oh, this person has 1 million followers. Or you're talking in terms of onesies and twosies and making customer relationships. But Twitter is just, it's out there on mass media. So how do you actually deal with the large scale and select people that you'd rather?
Well, my advice is to try not to do too much too soon, and to go slow and build organically. And sure, it's possible, you know, I could probably give a session to tell you how to get 10,000 followers in a week, but, you know, well, some of that would probably be people that don't really exist. But it's more important to have, well, no, you can buy Twitter followers and they don't really exist. Yeah, it's, but in some ways that helps to make an account look good or look impressive, but it doesn't really help in terms of accomplishing your real goals and objectives. And so it is really about, and that's where instead of trying to build this kind of personal relationships with 1,000 or 10,000 people or 1 million people, you're probably better to kind of figure out how to do it with 10 people or 100 people or 200 people. And so then as you're potentially connected with more people, you're not overwhelmed and you kind of have some sort of sense of how to respond to individuals and notice individuals. But there's some other techniques that I'll touch upon too that will help it. Yes?
Is following people the best way to keep people to follow you?
At one time, in the original days of Twitter, like we're talking more than 3 years ago, way back, the convention was if someone followed you, you were expected to follow them back. That's no longer the case. You do not have to follow anybody just because they follow you. Does it increase the chances? Yes, because they may not know about you otherwise, and probably they're checking their list of people that they follow, and they'll pull up your profile that I showed, and they'll kind of figure out, is this somebody who's interesting that I might like to follow, and will they be sharing information that is going to be interesting to me? Are they going to be on often enough to make it worthwhile following them? So that's one way of potentially introducing yourself to people. But that's where I'm saying, like, you could go and follow 10,000 people, and maybe 5,000 of them might follow you back. But you know, if you haven't built up any relationship, it's you might as well not have anybody following you. You still have to do the engagement aspect. Yes.